Good evening, everyone. This is Niyi Adewale, host of the Ekabo Home Financial Freedom Mastermind Group, and I'm excited to be joining you on the 1st of November. Last 2 months of the year, 2023 feels like it went by in a flash, and I hope that all of you have been doing well, remaining safe, and crushing your goals. So as we head into the final 2 months of the year, I'm just excited to continue accelerating with my teams. I can tell you that a lot of the goals that we set for this year have already been accomplished or are very close to it. And so it's truly exciting to start thinking and turning the page for next year and thinking how we can take this Akaba home thing to the top and keep growing from there. But this is going to be an open session. So if you want to drop any questions, comments, or thoughts into the chat, feel free. And or if you want to join live, just hit the join live button and we can make it happen. And we will pause for a second for that. One thing that is semi top of mind that happened today was Cobb County, which is like Marietta, Smyrna's of the world, things of that nature, rolled out some short-term rental ordinance earlier this year, and now they're starting to actually put it into effect and I guess work to enforce it. And so Airbnb sent out a message to anybody that has an Airbnb in Cobb County. And so, I own one. I think we've talked about it before, the luxury sports art gallery, and then also an in-law suite behind it, and manage a couple more out that way. And so went through the process of getting those permitted. And I gotta say, it was one of the more simple ones to date. Like this was not even that hard. I think I filled out all the paperwork in one day and sent out the letters. And then earlier today, I actually went into the office to kind of get the documents finalized and deliver it to them. And they're going to have the certificate in the next week mailed to us. So it's not that hard. It's not the whole owner occupant thing that Atlanta was trying to push. It's very simple, actually, and the process makes sense. They just want to understand who's doing it so they can fine you if there's excessive noise and things of that nature. But long story short, Cobb County STR ordinance and the way that they are handling it is a lot better than what I've seen from Metro Atlanta so far. And so it's encouraging to see that they have a whole process. I paid for the rest of this year and also next year, so I don't got to do this again until 2025 for a renewal. And the renewal is not that hard as well. But please feel free to join live and or drop any questions in the chat. This is an open session, so this can go in many directions.
Hello.
Liban, welcome.
I'm doing good. For some reason, I don't know if we're having technical issues, but I cannot hear you. And I don't know if that's something
You
on
can't
my
hear me?
end. Yeah, I can't hear you at all.
It's probably on my
Hold
end.
on,
Give
let
me
me see.
1
Maybe
second.
it's something on my end, in terms of audio. Nope. Yeah, no. Am I the only one that can't hear you? Is anyone in the audience that might be able to let us know?
Can anybody hear me? That's a good question. Let me that would help. So I'm looking at the vocals, so it seems like I'm good from a vocal
So you
standpoint.
can
It's
hear him?
definitely playing. Levon, we got to fix your computer, man. And CT, if you're in, see if you can join, man. Levon, hear us. Levon, can you hear me?
No,
he cannot.
I'm going to leave and try to join.
Fair enough. But as we head into the last 2 months of the year, one of the things I always love to do at the end of the year, and this year is going to be significantly needed, right? So, as many of you know, I left the W-2 in August of last year. And so I still had, majority of the year was W-2, and then I had the businesses on the side. But this is the first full year fully into business, and there's been a lot of income coming in, but then a lot of expenses just randomly popping up. And so one of the things I like to do at the end of the year is audit all the expenses, figure out where the dollars were going and what was the value or the ROI on it. So I've already started renegotiating a couple of the contracts that I had in place for this year ahead of next year, cutting some things out so that we can spend in other areas. And I'm looking to really optimize kind of this last 2 months of tax season heading into 2024 to make sure I move things around in the correct way to lower kind of the tax burden heading into next year. But this is something I highly recommend, that piece. And then also, this is something I used to do back in 2020. But I recently, in 2020 and 2021, I was pretty consistent. And then I fell out of it. And now I've gotten back into it over the last month and a half. but tracking your net worth, this is huge, right? I read this book, uh, uh, Millionaire Fastlane, right? And also just listen to a bunch of podcasts. And they talk about the importance of just being able to track kind of your net worth over time. And so, yeah, Christian, great thought. That Mint app is awesome for automating that. But I took it even a step further because sometimes the Mint app, it's not great for real estate purposes if you own a bunch of property or for like businesses that may be worth something. So I actually have a spreadsheet. It's a little bit manual, but it's a great exercise that me and my wife do and kind of pull this thing together. Is we once a month have a vision dinner, but we update that spreadsheet with everything. We look at, the home bot for the home values to see where it is right now. We look at all the accounts. We look at any investments that we're in and put all that together to see what that net worth is. And we also set net worth goals, yearly. So it's like, okay, what net worth can we get to? Because at the end of the day, that's the piece that really is going to allow you to kind of retire super early, right? And be able to kind of live off of that portion and kind of go from there. But Levon, can you hear me?
Yeah, no, I can hear everything now. I think it's just because I had to join back in. I don't know what's going on there. But to actually ask a question to you, what do you classify as net worth? Because I know a lot of people define it differently. And, it's kind of a broad term, especially by what you classify as assets. So what was kind of your definition and what do you and your wife use and track as that kind of net worth?
Yeah. Dude, so I love this question, and it is assets minus liabilities. And actually, I can actually show you a sheet that I've whitewashed, right? So it doesn't have my information on it because I shared it with somebody else that was looking to do this. But I'll show you a sheet that I have, and it is assets minus liabilities. So all the debts that you owe, whether it's student debt, whether it's credit card debt, anything like that, you want to go ahead and track that piece. And it shows you where you can really, here you go. Okay, so this one, again, I've whitewashed this, but this is the exact sheet that I use for tracking this. So can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can.
You can see my screen? Okay, so this is the sheet I use. And you can see like, hey, you've got dashboard, you've got assets, you've got liabilities. And you just plug that in across the board and it pops out your dashboard. And basically all it does is just subtract, your liabilities from your assets, and it gives you a net worth number, and it shows you where most of it relies. Right. And so if anybody ever wants something like this to check it out, happy to send it your way, but it's a good exercise. The first time you do it, it's going to take forever. Highly recommend. You can see that recommendation in the chat to get something like the Mint app, so you're not having to log into 15 different apps. But if you do this, then you stay consistent with it. All you're doing is updating, and it shows you where you can get the most. Like for me, I'm pretty heavy in real estate, and so that's where a good portion of the net worth is. But stocks were a big portion at one point when I was working in W-2. Cash was a big portion at one point before I started investing heavily and things of that nature.
Okay. And then is there a
Mark? How you doing? Go ahead. Sorry, Levon.
No, you're good. I was going to ask you, is there a balance that you like having in terms of I want to have a minimum of X? I want to have a minimum of this in terms of percentage wise, or does it kind of not matter?
You mean as far as like in different categories?
Yeah. Yeah. You said like a minimum, so that way you're kind of diversified, or is it you're not really paying too much attention to that? It's more so the overall total number, and is the total number going up?
In full transparency, it's mostly the total number, right, that I'm looking at. But I do want to have just a reserve account. I do want to have X amount in these other areas, whether that be stock like Vanguard that you can pull on quickly, whether that be, your company stock, whether that be even retirement accounts that you can pull on in a time of need as a backstop, right? But the main thing is for me, I like specializing, right? If you're going to get really good at something like real estate investing, you can take it to the moon. And so my whole thing is I think we're eliminating a lot of the risk by focusing there and understanding how the whole kind of process works. And then having the other things as ancillary. So I'd say I'm probably like 90% real estate, or like, a high percentage, 75%, 90% real estate, especially with the commercial projects that we got going on in Louisville. And then, the other percentage is between cash, stocks, and things of that nature to make sure that we have a reserve if anything happens.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. No, for sure.
Mark, how you doing? And Mark, can you hear us?
Can you hear us?
I don't think he can hear us.
Yeah. Oh.
With that in mind, Liban, what's been new in your life, man? What you got going on?
I mean, as you know, I have started a remodeling kind of end in which, we're doing that. So a lot of learnings there. We're really learning management. That's really the big piece. But we're starting to slowly be hands off. And actually, in this job that we're doing, it's going to be the first one that I'm completely hands off on. And it's a complete job too. So it's funny how the bigger the job, the less hands on, because you can kind of play around with the capital because you have more available to you. So that's something that's very kind of I learned is very true. The real money is made in not being there. It's in the arbitrage kind of. Yeah, which was very interesting. Yeah.
That's the key.
Mm-hmm.
That's literally the key. We all start off doing everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the goal is to continue to expand, continue to grow. And I think we talk about this pretty constantly, right? Get to that next level to where we have help, to
Mm-hmm.
where now you can just focus on the highest dollar activity. Like, for example, you could be on site doing all the work, or you
Yeah,
could be going out and finding more
getting
work,
more.
right? If you go
Exactly.
out and find more work, the guys are
Exactly.
happy to do it, and you're able
Exactly.
to make more without your time
Exactly.
being tied up.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And to that point, that's kind of how we kind of structured it, is essentially I'm kind of just going out, finding clients and finding people that do need work done. And it works out really well because a lot of times our price is actually lower than whatever quote they originally got. And we're most likely going to be doing a better job. So it's kind of a win-win for most of the investors that we've worked with, at least. They tended to end up, I would say I've never had a client only work with us one time. It's been consistently repeat, so that's been good. That's been good.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. I may have some work coming your way here at some point.
Please.
I'm working on Hey, I'm working on lease renewals for the fourplex. We got
Mhm.
one of them signed. The other one is we're going through the whole process of like, hey, why is the price going up? Hey, everything's going up, right? Type of
Mhm.
deal. You
Mhm.
kind of go back and forth. So we're
So
gonna figure
yeah.
that piece out. But
Mhm.
if they do end up moving out, I'm gonna need to update that unit.
Okay.
So we'll definitely
Wow.
talk. That'll be
Okay.
like a February conversation.
Yeah. No, for sure.
But Desmond, how you doing, man?
What's up, man? I'm hanging out. Happy
Come on
November.
now.
What's up?
Happy
November.
November.
Happy
All right.
November.
I'm
And wait,
happy
hold
that
on.
you're on.
You said Liban's doing renovations? I'm gonna write that
I
down.
do.
Keep that in
I
mind.
do.
You got a
I
you got
do.
a
Keep me in mind.
renovation company going on or something?
Yeah,
Sorry, I missed the
I don't want to say
initial.
company. It's more like a partnership, really, in which
Okay.
it was already a previously existing business. I kind of just came in, hey, I can help you guys out a lot. We worked out an agreement with the owner, and it's kind of been a win-win so far. And then really the goal is to have them work and do flips now for, me and him. So that way now we're doing our own. And now as we need more work, and truly the way I'm trying to look at it is little remodel, like a kitchen remodel, bathroom remodel, the crew can knock that out in a week, 2 week. So those would be the jobs that I would be feeding them while we're doing big picture, my own flips, hopefully in the future. So yeah. Yeah, but we're just trying to
Very
look.
cool. I'm gonna keep you in
Yeah.
mind.
Please do. We do good work. I'll send you pictures.
Might have some. Yeah. Okay, please do. I might have some units
Yeah.
coming up myself, man. If we
Hey,
can
Come
close on
on
this
now.
deal, Nee, hopefully that
I'm telling you, I'm
Hey,
we'll
cheaper.
see.
fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna hold you to that. You don't know the
Hey,
price yet. I'm gonna hold you to
Hey,
that. All right?
I've just
hey,
noted.
this is
I've just
true.
noted that we're a lot cheaper. Or I don't want to say cheaper. We're
You're on
fair.
recording.
We're
Keep in
fair.
mind, you're on recording.
Hey,
So
that's
okay.
true. We are. Hey, I'm gonna
Look,
mark my words.
now the
Mark my
story
words.
changed. You like, wait a second.
He said, "What date is this? November 1st? All right, I got
Hey,
you."
Uh,
Nah, it's
yeah,
cool. Yeah,
guys, that was November
Levon's become kind
prices.
of
I'm gonna pull
our
the same. I'm gonna pull the same line with you.
see,
Credits. Hey,
ah,
those are the November lines, guys. Ah,
that's funny. That's funny.
yeah, no. But I kind of want to
no,
ask you. I know you.
Levon's definitely specialized. Go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna ask Desmond. I know you're. Did you still kind of end up looking for those Airbnbs that you could just like rent out? I kind of was curious and following you up on that end.
Yeah, man, I haven't dug into that yet,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because really, like I know we were talking about that probably 2 or 3 months ago. And you were asking to see, like, did I know any apartment complexes that, allow arbitrage? And I think you had, I had the arbitrage. It didn't end up really working out that well. I could tell you about that on the side. I've already kind of dug into it here, but I know you said like Airbnb list out some of the complexes that allow for arbitrage. But really, that was 2 or 3 months ago, and I started to shift my focus toward the next purchase, right? Because I purchased my property last October. So I started to think about, okay, let me, start getting the MLS searches set up. So hook me up with that. Let me start seeing where my financing is at and whatnot. So I'm digging into that right now. We've actually got an offer out that expires on Friday. So hopefully, that'll get accepted, or at least it's on a fourplex that is literally across the street from the property that I own now.
Oh, that's
so it'll be very convenient.
That's an easy move,
man. Easy move, dude. You telling me?
Hey,
you telling me? And like, it's an off-market deal. I've been chatting with the owner. He literally owns like half the block. So we're hoping that will go through, or at least, he's been around the block a long time. Like, he's an older guy, owns a lot of properties. But if he doesn't accept it, I'm at least hoping that he will counter with something that's reasonable. Right. And he's a reasonable guy, right? Like, we be chatting, like, we will have sidewalk conversations here and there. So even if he doesn't say yes on the first go, I'm at least hoping that he will, come back with something that's in the ballpark of the number that we're offering on. So we'll see. Fingers crossed for that for sure. But no, I haven't dug into the arbitrage piece more. I do think there is merit there, though. And I think in the new year, I might try that out again. Take the learnings from my previous one, where really I didn't even put it on B&B. I had like a tenant that I moved from my current property to that new arbitrage, but I didn't put the safeguards that you should put in place. I kind of just trusted our relationship, and I didn't take a deposit. I didn't have the lease as tight as it needed to be to compel her to do everything that she needed to do on her end to pay me the money back and whatnot. So end of the day, I want to try to take that learning, probably set up another one and, see where that goes. But right now I'm definitely focused on just like acquiring a property, and, maybe even, I just brought on a tax advisor. We're literally having a meeting tomorrow. She's a CTA, not CPA, which is certified tax advisor, not certified public accountant. So I had to go.
What's the difference there?
Yeah, well, I was going to ask what the difference was.
So a CTA, as I understand it, is basically someone who is just specializing only in taxes, and they have gotten a certification. FINRA offers the biggest certification for certified tax advisors, but there are some other smaller certifications as well. But basically the idea is that they specialize only in tax code, reducing your tax burden and all of that. Versus I did interview a good amount of CPAs, right, certified public accountants, but they offer a range of services, right? Kind of a broad scope, not just tax planning. They got the accounting thrown in there. They might even offer you some bookkeeping and whatnot. Like, they do a range of things. But right now, my focus is the taxes. Like, I don't need necessarily an accountant, right? I just brought Umair on separately as a bookkeeper, right? So I'm like, I'm trying to get my tax bill down, and that's the focus. That's the only focus, at least, that I want to have them on. So that's kind of why I decided to go with her. Like, the only language she speaks is, reducing tax burden. So I'm like, like, that's exactly what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Let's see if it'll work. I spent amount of money that I'm not really ready to talk about to get this tax plan. So when we do, hop on the call, I'm like, you need to be coming with some solid strategies that we can employ this year. And like, I need to see some of this money come back in these strategies that you bringing to me. And if not, like, it's going to be a different conversation. But we'll see. And yeah, it's kind of where I'm at right now, man.
Yeah, I heard a good rule
like
of thumb
this.
for
And if we're
taxes.
able to, and speaking positively, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
If we're able to, speaking positively, secure that fourplex, it's going to be awesome to be able to move over there, right? One, be able to have a couple more units up and running to where it's not arbitrage. It's like you own these units, nobody's taking that away. And then there's some huge tax advantages you can take on the previous fourplex, even just with doing that cost segregation. Like there's a lot of dollars that can be saved from that. That can be rolled forward depending on how much you make with the W-2, things of that nature. But yeah, a lot coming your way. I'm happy that you're setting the systems up now because the quicker you can do that, man, the better it's going to be. It's painful right now. It's truly painful when you have like 10, 15 properties and you're like, all right, now I need to get a CPA and now I need to get a bookkeeper and try to set it up. That took forever with the whole bookkeeping thing, trying to set up all that stuff. I was like, dude, this is like a 3-month project. So you're doing it right.
Nice.
Hopefully, thank you. I appreciate it. I hope so. And yeah, man, when we're able to lock this fourplex down, because I definitely think it is the right next play. But yeah, man, it can definitely even I think trusting someone to, add value and paying someone to add value has been a little tough for me, but I see the benefit in doing it now versus, on down the road. And especially with my personal income, I'm like, dude, just that alone, we need to make sure that is in its right place and I'm not giving too much to Uncle Sam. And with the cost segregation piece, I think it's something that I've thought about it. And actually she had a word on this in our consultation call, and saying that I don't know that that's going to be beneficial for me right now, given how much I'm making on the personal income, because I won't be able to take advantage of those losses right now, right? Because my shit's too high. So I'm like, I don't think that's a play I want to pay for right now, because I know that cost seg can be expensive. Right? They want I think I asked a guy about it. He was like, yeah, at least 3-4K. I'm like, Jesus,
that's accurate. I think I paid like $6,000 last year for 2 houses.
I'm like, goodness gracious, I might have to
are you
get my pencil and paper out, try to break some of stuff. You know what I'm saying?
What is a cost segregation and why is it so expensive? I'm not at this level.
Hey, come on now. It's coming soon. So cost segregation is basically where they look at a house or a multifamily and they look at all the pieces that are going to wear out earlier than 30 years, right? When you're buying a house, typically, like the windows, they don't expect those to last, 30 years. The tax code puts those at like 15 or 10 years. The rug, the carpets, the other fixtures that are within the house, like the light fixtures and things of that nature, it all has a certain value. And you're able to accelerate the depreciation of those and take it as a tax credit earlier in the process than you would have to wait over the 27 and a half years. Like the way I used to do it before kind of, getting to this point now is I would just leave the house, right? And so they'd give you 127 and a half each year as the depreciation. With the cost segregation, I was able to fast forward about 75K from both of those houses, so about 150K, and take it all in 1 year and really write off taxes, which allowed me to actually get a check back from the IRS last year, which was awesome. First time it's happened in a long time. Now, the risk with that, though, is if you sell that house, right, it's going to recapture all that as part of the tax burden that you're going to have to pay. So you want to do this on something you plan to hang on to for a little bit, or you want to keep doing this as you acquire more real estate so that you can offset it.
So can you keep segregate? So it's a one-time thing that I'm assuming, right? It's a one-time, one house, but it's essentially saying instead of depreciating over the 30-year, I'll just take all my depreciation up front.
For the most part, yep. And it's only certain pieces. There's still a little bit that's going to go over the 30 years, but you're taking a huge chunk of it in year one.
Yeah. No, it's all the stuff that will break down over time that will have to be replaced just due to code and living standards, right? Okay, I get it. That makes sense. Okay. And I have a question because you mentioned
Desmond. You have any?
No, I had a question for Desmond because he mentioned it was off market. How did we find the deal initially? Did we just go direct to seller, called him? How did we find him? How do we find this property specifically, etc.?
Yeah, good question. And I think this speaks to the idea of just like tell everybody about, what you're interested in, and tell everybody about your plans and your interest in real estate, because no, I didn't go looking for this guy. I wasn't sending out mailers and none of that. Like literally he owns the property that is adjacent to mine. It's a 26 unit. And he was out here last week just checking it out. Bless you. And just we have had sidewalk conversations here and there, just about like not even really about acquiring property or nothing like that. Like I've just told him my interest in continuing to scale. He saw that I bought my current property. We partnered on getting a fence built between our properties because the one that was there prior was just falling down. So we've just shot the shit back and forth here and there. And like one day he was like, yeah, man, like I'm looking to, start offloading. Like he's looking to get into like nail salons, just so like a different business venture. And I'm like, man, like that's interesting. I'm looking to potentially purchase a property this year. And kind of just left it at that, right? Like we didn't start the negotiation right there. Like I wasn't even like, oh, like, let me buy your house, like nothing like that. It just really developed organically. Like after that, he's like, yeah, like, everything's for sale, basically is literally what he said out of his mouth. I'm like, shoot, like I know you own this fourplex, like, what's up, basically. Like, time's coming up, I'm trying to buy another crib. Yeah, basically, like I didn't come out and just directly say that, but basically,
but hey, I'm interested.
Literally. So now it's led up to this offer, and hopefully we can get it accepted and get the ball rolling from there. But yeah, man, very organically, very like randomly. And what's funny too is that I wasn't even thinking about none of his properties until they just completely changed the rules on conventional mortgages. Like I get a text from me one morning. I'm on my balcony chilling. I'm like, oh shit. Like they've literally changed the game where now you can put this 5% down on these small multifamilies, where like literally before that I was crying about, man, it's like 25. I had literally just talked to the lender like 2 weeks prior about it having to be 25% up from the 20 that it was. So I'm like, man, like this is perfect. So yeah, man, it really just kind of fell into my lap out of nowhere, and I'm grateful for that happening. Yeah, man, it's cool.
That's great. I love to hear that. Awesome. No, it sounds like you really built out the relationship slowly. No, awesome. Nice.
It's the stars aligning, man, and it's one of those things. Like that's the best way. Literally, what you just said, Desmond, is the word of the day. Tell everybody about what you're doing, right? A lot of people say that, but when you actually start practicing that and letting people know, like, hey, this is what I'm into, things of that nature, like it'll build from there, right? It'll build relatively quickly. Like before I even left the W-2, when I was around Atlanta and people were asking, hey, what do you do? It wasn't, hey, I'm in medical sales. I was like, hey, I'm an investor-friendly realtor, right? Investor-friendly realtor. And then when I left, now it's kind of built up to where it's like, hey, this is what he does, right? So it's okay. It's cool. So if you have something in your mind or a side hustle that you're looking to grow, I would tell people about that constantly and try to find ways to stand out.
No, for sure. And to that point, I can even add to that, because the way I even started the whole renovation thing was I went to Loren and Tina's house. I was learning stuff. I would post about it. Eventually, Naira said, hey, can you do this for me? I went out, and then we did her kitchen, a mantle, fireplace, and a ton of stuff. That would have never happened if I didn't make a post just saying, hey, guys, I just put in a toilet. Look at me, So, yeah, letting people know what you're doing is very key. I agree. That's a very good point.
We just lost Liban.
Yeah, you cutting out a little bit, Liban.
We got to get the internet working, man.
Yeah, dude. You gotta switch to Sprint or something, man.
No. But yeah, this is pretty exciting heading into this last 2 months of the year, man. And Desmond, I don't know if you caught this earlier on, but I was talking about Cobb County short-term rental ordinance. They officially have released it, right? It came out earlier this year. But I actually went and got the license for the art house up there, which you saw. And I'm working on getting a couple others that we manage licensed. I gotta say, it's one of the smoothest and easiest processes ever. It's like 11 pages. You fill out like 5 of them. You get a couple notarized, handle that all in a day. And then you go into the office and it's not a lot of wahala, right? Came in, hand the documents over, showed that, hey, we sent the letters, and hand them a check for like $55, and they gave us a whole year. So Cobb County, I like how they're doing theirs. It's good.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the restriction there? Like, you've got to get an ordinance, sure, but is there any other restriction that they put in place? Like, oh, because I know Atlanta was trying to say, oh, we're going to limit the number, maybe square feet or like miles or how many an owner can have. Has Cobb County done anything like that?
Not like that. No restrictions from that standpoint. The only piece they're restricting is based on the size of your home, how many cars you can have parked there, and how many adults you can have on site at a time, right? So outside of that, no restrictions. And I think it's really just to kind of mark and see, hey, how many people are there doing this? Now, the restrictions will probably come into play later if there's like a lack of housing or, there's parties all over the place that they're shutting them down. But as for right now, I think it's so early on. Like I'm sprinting to get everything fully approved, get the licenses in. Same thing in Atlanta to make sure that we're going to be grandfathered in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Smooth.
Yeah.
No, interesting. Yeah.
Anything else top of mind from anybody in the chat and or on the line?
Yeah, and just while we're waiting on that, I'm so curious to see because Nee, I had mentioned to you where I saw in like at the bottom of the October College Park newsletter where they had very clearly stated Airbnbs are illegal. Like that was the first thing that they said. And I was like, holy shit, like this is crazy. So I actually took that, posted it on Nextdoor, which I never go on, but I've used, that was my first post, right? And some people had chimed in saying, hey, they've been saying this kind of for a while. Like I saw this like a year and a half ago, they had mentioned this, but I know that's not going to fly. I know they can't just come out and say, hey, look, like we're going to all out ban this, especially given that Atlanta, especially the major city in the state, is, going through a big battle to, untangle the ordinance mess that they've seemed to create and, try to figure out what makes the most sense. Sounds like Cobb County is doing the ordinance, and I feel like surrounding counties are going to start adopting a similar model. So I know in College Park, they can't just say, or at least I don't think it'll go over well, them just saying, oh, this is completely illegal. I don't want to be the one to see a city, but, I'm hoping that they take note of what's going on in some of these other places and adopt hopefully a similar reasonable ordinance model. So we'll see. I'll keep y'all posted if I do hear anything.
Please do. And it's one of those things where I think we talked about it a little bit before, but I'm following it obviously because we have properties and we manage a bunch. But you can see Atlanta completely took their foot off the gas on that. Hey, you have to be an owner occupant. You can only have two. And then they realized as we got closer that this could turn into a New Orleans situation, right? And for those who we have not talked about this before, back in 2019, New Orleans introduced short-term ordinance that said you had to be an owner occupant, right? You got to live in one of the units and you can only have one more. And it was, they were shutting down Airbnbs left and right. And then the people sued and went to a higher court and they lost because it was unconstitutional. And so the city actually lost. And so when I see things like what's happening in New York and what Atlanta was trying to do previously, I look back to that precedent that was set at a higher court. It wasn't even like hey, this is a county or a state court. It was like a higher, district court, whatever you want to call it. That kind of sets the precedent. And the reason it's unconstitutional is if we changed up the language and said, hey, you can't have a long-term rental, right, in College Park unless you live in College Park. That doesn't make any sense. It's like, oh, people live like in California that have long-term rentals out there. And so with the short-term rental ordinance, it makes sense to say, hey, we're going to limit the total number in the city where it's still fair play, or hey, you can only have X to your name, something of that nature. But to say, hey, you have to live here to have that, that's slippery slope. And to your point, Desmond, I think they would get sued. And I'm interested to see what happens with the New York piece over time. Going through courts takes like a year or two, but we'll see what happens over time. And I see a question from Kareem. I don't have the answer on this one, Kareem. Has anyone done arbitrage successfully?
No.
I knew a guy that was doing it before semi-successfully, but he was doing it before the apartments started, quote unquote, allowing it, but then taking 25% of your profits, meaning that you would have to basically clean the place and do all the maintenance yourself if you want to make any money. Bro, that 25% is the profit.
Doesn't work out long term. Don't be your own cleaner long term. Maybe in the beginning, not long term. Trust me. And to answer your question, no, I have not done. I've done one unsuccessfully, so I can say that. But I know it's possible. I know it's freaking possible. Tony Robinson just set up like 3. I heard him on the Bigger Pockets podcast the other day talking about, or like 4. They just got into, and he just set them all up, or like got into that play for like $5,000 total, just from like the lease fees, that he had to pay. So no, I haven't done one. I don't even personally know anyone of any friends or anything that is doing them, but I know it's freaking possible. Especially, I feel like a game changer could be like, I wouldn't necessarily go to like one of these big high rises, because I feel like they're going to want to like take some of your profit, and like they're gonna, I don't know, just be more savvy and like understanding what's going on. They're gonna want to take some of your money. But I feel like if you go to a mom and pop investor, and like one of the issues with my property that I had is like they had cameras on the building, so like on the property, so they had ring cameras, they had ring floodlight cameras, they could see very clearly what was going on. I feel like if you get a mom and pop investor, maybe they live out of state, as long as you pay the rent, don't set the place on fire, they kind of leave you alone, and it's in a semi-desirable, like an area is going to do well, man, I swear you could be making some serious money. I haven't found that yet, but I am going to look for that next year, because I know, just like with any Airbnb, like the guests come, they leave, and usually things are fine. So like, I know it's possible, man. I stand by it.
And to that point, if you want to learn how to lose money on arbitrage, I'm going to give you Desmond's contact. But we're going to switch. But we have one question on there. How do you pitch the landlords if you don't have a ton of units under your belt? I think it would just be in how you even just present it. Like when I first started with the short-term rental management, and it was just a solo game at that point when we had like 3. And then I got a lead to, hey, Nee, can you talk to this person about potentially managing theirs? I just put together documents and, not a full out presentation, but I put together like a PDF that was nice and kind of had like a background story and talked about different systems that we use and talk confidently. Because if you have one short-term rental that you've been managing, you know a lot, man. Like you know how to get it up and running. You understand, hey, we're going to automate 80% of the messages. This is how we control access to the home. We've got cameras everywhere. This is how we vet our guests. Like it's the same questions you would ask somebody else if they were like, hey, I want to use your home for a short-term rental. That's what you got to be prepared for. And if you're able to show kind of a visual and walk through that piece, even on the front end, I think it'll comfort someone. And the fact that you can pay a little bit more. So the first place I would look is, especially in the wintertime, right? I'd look at places that are listed, that have been listed for rent for, X number of weeks, maybe 3 weeks or more, 4 weeks. And reach out to those guys and say, hey, I love this area, love this property. Would you be open to having a discussion about, me leasing this back to, corporate folks, or me leasing this back to individuals that are coming to stay for a couple weeks, right? And then when you get on the phone, you can talk about what you're trying to do, which is Airbnb arbitrage, and how you can pay a little bit more, how you can put maybe a higher security deposit so they're protected, kind of make it go from there.
Yeah, and I would echo that, especially surrounding like how you vet your guest and who you're bringing in. I think that's a big piece that they care about, especially if it's like a mom and pop landlord. Like I had to, go through this, because I had to do a little bit of convincing to allow them to let me do it, right? And I think a big thing that you want to emphasize is, one, hey, we vet our guests very seriously, especially if you're using something like AutoHost. You are, using some sort of, sophisticated verification process. I would definitely emphasize that and just mention that, hey, like we want this to go well as much as you do. Like we don't want to bring in anyone that is going to trash the place or, disrupt the income that, you're looking to bring in. That's definitely the first thing I would emphasize. And then also, I would pose it as, and I saw this, because really the idea how I got this idea of like, oh, this arbitrage shit can do very well, because I just saw this on like a random like Instagram ad, like, oh, hey, you want to hear how to make $20,000 in like a month? Those kind of guys. I'm like, oh, well, yeah, I'll listen for the next 30 seconds. And then he just got me thinking, like, man, but one of the things he mentioned was pose it as you're doing them a favor. And really, when you look at it, you kind of are, right? Like, mention that, hey, we're getting the place professionally clean, right? None of our guests tend to stay more than a week, right? We, constantly monitor the place. And I think the idea just that, like, the place isn't going to be worn and torn by someone who's just in there all the time. You have people coming in and going out. And also, in that same sense that you have people coming in and going out, mention that, hey, like we do, a very, we're watching the property, right? We're not just going to let people come in and, do whatever they want and, be causing a ruckus in the neighborhood. So I would emphasize, hey, like we are looking at this. We want it to go well. We have cameras set up and we take care of the property because we have it clean, because, just of the nature of Airbnb. So, yeah. Kareem, let us know if you're going to end up doing one, man. I'm really interested to hear how it works out. Because obviously, I don't know how to do. I don't know what I'm doing. So.
Hey, come on now.
Hey,
but you took a stab.
Yeah. I'm curious to see how, like, kind of those markets that are vacation markets, but that still have homes for rent, what that likelihood is, because they have lower, like the rent in the area is a lot lower, I'm assuming, like places like Gainesville, because the people that actually live in Gainesville very much, poorer than the people in Atlanta. So rent typically in Gainesville is like $1,500. But Nee knows, looking at some properties that we've helped people purchase in Gainesville, the Airbnb numbers are really high because of Lake Lanier. So it's like maybe places like that you can maybe pitch to give more money because they generate way more money.
Agreed. 100% agreed. But it's just looking for those pain points. I think Desmond, Liban are spot on with that. And I'd be remiss not to say, and this is because you mentioned like vacation markets. If anybody's looking for a vacation home, fully furnished, pretty new, I think it was 2021 build, we're going to be listing one up in Blue Ridge in about 24 hours, right? So I think the picture should be in if they're not right now. So hit us up if you are looking for something like that. This home is actually pretty dope. I plan to drive up there just to go hang out at some point. So I'll be doing an open house, literally just so I can hang out in the house because it's so cool at some point. But Liban, what's the final word, man? What you got?
I really I'm
putting you on the spot.
Hey, I appreciate it. No, I mean,
you weren't ready for that.
Yeah, no, I really wasn't. No, I mean, honestly, wrapping it up, like I think overall, as we covered, short-term rental game is one of those. It's a grind. You just got to keep at it. It's one of those things that I think it's a numbers game. Really, it's just a numbers game, because there's definitely gonna be some people who all they care about is, hey, get me my money on time. That's it. So I think finding, like you mentioned, the pain point in a seller, or being able to find a creative situation like vacation homes where you can get more for the property and say, hey, instead of giving you $1,500, I'll give you $1,800. I'll give you a $300 premium. And they're looking at it like, I'm not going to get this anywhere else. Meanwhile, you're making X some difference, Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's
done and done. That was a good final word. We will take it. We will take it for now. And and the last piece that I'll leave you with before we kind of jump for the night is as you start to scale this thing, it really allows you to kind of drive down some of your costs. And we've realized that across the portfolio, from cleaning costs to maintenance costs to even being able to leverage that portfolio to get more midterm renters in. And when you get those midterm renters, it's sweet, man. People are in there for 6 months. The cash flow is consistent, and it's just like, you don't have to message anything. I mean, Desmond, you've had a couple of those. And the more units you have, the easier it is to start to leverage to the insurance companies and things of that nature, because now they know they can call you, not just for one property, but you can leverage them to others. And I think I talked about it last week, but we had that most recently happen with one that we didn't even get to list because they were calling on a different property that was already booked out. And we were able to just redirect them and say, hey, we got this other one coming to market. Will this work? And kind of make it happen from there. But guys, I appreciate you joining on November 1st. I'm so pumped to finish out the rest of the year strong. And I hope that all of you will continue to achieve your goals and kind of crush the end of 2023. But I will catch you next week, and I appreciate you joining.
Let's get it. Catch you next week.
Get it.
See ya.
Yes,
see you, mate.
Everyone, take care.